Dhammapada verse 25, Culapanthaka with 2. The story of Culapanthaka. While residing at the Viluvana monastery, the Buddha uttered verse 25 of this book with reference to Culapanthaka, a grandson of a banker of Rajgaha. The banker had two grandsons named Mahapanthaka and Culapanthaka. Mahapanthaka, being the elder, used to accompany his grandfather to listen to religious discourses. Later, Mahapanthaka joined the Buddhist religious order and in course of time became an arahat. Culapanthaka followed his brother and became a bhikkhu. But because in a previous existence in the time of Kassapa Buddha, Culapanthaka had made fun of a bhikkhu who was very dull. He was born a dullard in the present existence. He could not even memorize one verse in 4 months. Mahapanthaka was very disappointed with his younger brother and even told him that he was not worthy of the order. About that time, Jivaka came to the monastery to invite the Buddha and the resident bhikkhus to his house for a meal. Mahapanthaka, who was then in charge of assigning the bhikkhus to meal invitations, left out Culapanthaka from the list. When Culapanthaka learned about this, he felt very much frustrated and decided that he would return to the life of a householder. Knowing his intention, the Buddha took him along and made him sit in front of the Gandhaguri hall. He then gave a clean piece of cloth to Culapanthaka and told him to sit there facing east and rub the piece of cloth. At the same time, he was to repeat the word Rajoharanam, which means taking on impurity. The Buddha then went to the residence of Jivaka, accompanied by the bhikkhus. Meanwhile, Culapanthaka went on rubbing the piece of cloth, all the time muttering the word Rajoharanam. Very soon, the cloth became soiled. Seeing this change in the condition of the cloth, Culapanthaka came to realize the impermanent nature of all conditioned things. From the house of Jivaka, the Buddha, through supernormal power, learned about the progress of Culapanthaka. He sent forth his radiance so that, to Culapanthaka, the Buddha appeared to be sitting in front of him, saying, "It is not the piece of cloth alone that is made dirty by the dust. Within oneself also there exists the dust of passion, raga, the dust of ill will, dosa, and the dust of ignorance, moha, that is, the ignorance of the Four Noble Truths. Only by removing these could one achieve one's goal and attain arahatship." Culapanthaka got the message and kept on meditating, and in a short while attained arahatship, together with analytical insight. Thus, Culapanthaka ceased to be a dullard. At the house of Jivaka, they were about to pour libation water as a mark of donation, but the Buddha covered the bowl with his hand and asked if there were any bhikkhus left at the monastery. On being answered that there were none, the Buddha replied that there was one and directed them to fetch Culapanthaka from the monastery. When the messenger from the house of Jivaka arrived at the monastery, he found not only one bhikkhu, but 1,000 identical bhikkhus. They all have been created by Culapanthaka, who by now possessed supernormal powers. The messenger was baffled, and he turned back and reported the matter to Jivaka. The messenger was sent to the monastery for the second time and was instructed to say that the Buddha summoned the bhikkhu by the name of Culapanthaka. But when he delivered the message, 1,000 voices responded, "I am Culapanthaka." Again baffled, he turned back for the second time. Then he was sent to the monastery for the third time. This time he was instructed to get hold of the bhikkhu, who first said that he was Culapanthaka. As soon as he got hold of that bhikkhu, all the rest disappeared, and Sulapantaka accompanied the messenger to the house of Jivaka. After the meal, as directed by the Buddha, Sulapantaka delivered a religious discourse confidently and bravely, roaring like a young lion. Later, when the subject of Sulapantaka cropped up among the bhikkhus, the Buddha said that one who was diligent and steadfast in his striving would certainly attain arahantship. Then the Buddha spoke in verse as follows. Verse 25. Through diligence, mindfulness, discipline, with regard to moral precepts, and control of his senses, let the man of wisdom make of himself an island which no flood can overwhelm.